Good morning, good morning, good morning. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I am really, very excited about this show because I have to be honest, I sort of pseudo stalked this woman to be on this show today. Sonia Brown Boyne. I did say your last name right,
You
Isabel.
did say it right.
Good. Is here today to talk to us about mental health and how our mental health may be impacting as well our decisions when it comes to the COVID vaccine. The COVID vaccine and the pandemic itself, the COVID-19 disease itself. I'll start with opening up the door to ask you who you are and what you do.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is, as Stephanie said, Sonia Brown Boyne. I am a licensed mental health counselor. By day, I work with the University of Miami in the Comprehensive AIDS program. I work with clients diagnosed with HIV or AIDS. I provide mental health counseling, case management, and training across the Southeast portion of the United States on anything mental health. I'm also an adjunct professor at Trinity International University in their mental health counseling training department. And I'm working on my PhD in counseling.
Oh, congratulations. Are you close?
No, ma'am.
Okay, that's a whole nother show. That's a whole nother show. Just let me know when you become a doctor. When you become a doctor.
Yeah.
We'll have you back when you're a doctor too.
Yes.
So do you provide director services yourself, or do you sort of manage a team, or are you more the strategist around how we are looking at mental health?
All of the above. So I do provide direct services within the department. I put my private practice in hiatus when I came over to UM because it is really an all-consuming type of work. And because I'm well enough at that season of my life, I was healthy enough to know if I'm going to pick up one more thing, I better put something down. Right. I'd outgrown the idea that I have to just keep piling it on and do one more thing. I used to have a banner on my door that said, "Do one more thing." And okay, so
you threw that away, right?
Yeah. So I put my private practice in hiatus while I'm doing this, and especially now as I'm working on school. The gray hairs were all earned. So I've learned I can't do that right now, but I do provide counseling to our clients as well as supervising the case management team. And then, of course, teaching is my other sweet spot. So I get to do that also.
So this has got to be an interesting time. Really, it is. You and I were talking a little bit. We had a whole nother show without y'all. Day. But we were talking a little bit about and I don't want to put it this way, but sort of the beauty of the pandemic is it's opened up this conversation around self-care and mental health. Be candid, we're two African-American women. Conversations or even identifying with having mental health issues in our community tends to be an area of shame.
Right.
It's something you don't talk about. It's something you don't own. You just suck it up, get over it, especially if you're an African-American woman. On your side of the aisle, this is happening on my side, but on your side of the table, what are those conversations looking like with regards to how to manage life now in this new normal called
normal? And I really appreciate that you use the term the beauty of it, because in any area of brokenness or sorrow, there is a space where there are things that can be valued. If we actually don't learn how to find value in the sorrow, then we have wasted pain. So we have to look for spaces where there are things that we can rescue and redeem out of all of the suffering, because that's what's going to take us. That's what builds resilience, is the ability to see that in spite of all of this, here was something that was valuable. I wouldn't say good, but valuable out of that experience. So a lot of our conversations, to your question, a lot of the conversations I'm having now depends on whether I'm talking with clients or peers or just the person in the plane beside me. But it's still, they're pretty much the same in that people are trying to have been trying to, since last March, thereabouts,
Mhm.
get back to the normalcy of life, right? We started out with, I want to get back to normal. Then we learned there is no normal, there was a new normal. And now that, specifically now that things are opening up, and as we're talking
Mhm.
vaccine and getting back on planes and getting back to work, there's a whole new level of, I don't know if I want it to go back to normal. So
Correct.
we started
Correct.
out with I want normal, and we've kind of come to this place of there were so many things that worked for good that I was able to find time to do some things. I didn't have to raise to do. I didn't have to do all the things that we didn't have to anymore. Now
Mhm.
people are kind of in that spot, that hesitation of, do I want to come out of the cocoon?
Mhm.
You know,
I've
it's
actually heard people say, I'm just terrified that we're going to go back from 0 to 70 again.
yes, yes,
And I've got to say that's one of my fears also,
yeah,
because, just managing your day back before the pandemic was just
hmm,
unheard of. So,
yeah,
um, now I'll start also with this too. I don't think we have fully understood what mental health means.
right.
I think we have lumped it into this level of incapacity, this thing where you're broken, this thing where that you don't want to be, versus, it really is not. There are different levels of people who have
Mhm.
challenges with mental health. Can you speak to and define it, and then define what mental health services are?
Sure. And that's a great question. So when we even talk about mental health at this place in history,
Mhm.
we speak about mental health because we try to avoid speaking about mental illness.
Right. Okay.
We've got all the words when you talk about somebody not being okay. She crazy, she cray cray, a little bit, she got issues. We went through all those different, you think about different periods in time, right? We had those different issues.
Mhm.
And mental illness has been so brutally treated
Mhm.
historically that it has a negative connotation. So we
Absolutely.
learn how to spin things. So now we talk about mental health, and we still don't even fully understand what that is. We talk about mental health as in where we do not have mental illness. But mental
Okay.
health really is, and the WHO has a great definition of it. I don't have the whole thing memorized, but it's this idea of being able to be fully functionally,
Mhm.
emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, to be able to contribute to outside of ourselves
Mhm.
by being able to be well inside of ourselves. And it
Okay.
really is
Okay.
about healthy daily functioning.
It's
Am I,
funny.
when you think Maslow's hierarchy, that place of self actualization, do I
Mhm.
have all these pieces in place so that I can be my fully best me
Best
on
so.
on a regular day?
And it's funny you say those words because as I was thinking through my questions, words like crazy and cray cray popped up. And I was like,
Mhm.
that's so highly inappropriate.
Right.
So, that's a thing. That's a real
That's what
thing.
we
And
do, right?
it's
Yeah,
still a thing, actually, if you
still
to
a
be
thing.
honest with it. Now, so, you know, I told you earlier, I have a
Mhm.
friend. We had a conversation, and particularly African American women who are carrying the weight of the world, and we carry stresses in a day that others may not experience in their
Right,
lifetime.
right.
We've just been trained as a gender, as a race, as a community to just suck it up and get over it.
Mhm.
And then you've got we struggle with before the pandemic, we struggle with jobs, we struggled with family, we struggled with emotional issues that we had not dealt with or weren't dealing with. The
Mhm.
pandemic comes along, now there's a shine of the light of our inadequate health care,
Right,
racism, which, the George Floyd situation, being considered a second class citizen. And now you want me to make a decision around a vaccine
right.
that's, I mean, talk about carrying the weight of the world that I quite frankly, considering our history, might think is, I'm a guinea pig. And I am.
Right,
So
right.
how do you suggest someone mentally unpack all of that and then say, okay, I'll take this shot?
Yeah. Okay, so that's the question of the day. Well, we unpack by one piece at a time. So using that word unpack is really cool because when you think about you get a package for
Mhm.
many of us who should have bought stock in Amazon because we did not realize, and like your driver knows you by name now. Like you don't even worry about this stuff being stolen anymore because so many things have come to your house.
They got your bag.
The neighbors are like, leave her stuff alone. Like, you're good because Amazon knows you personally. They know what
Right.
you put up in your feed. So when you think about that package comes, and how many of us get so frustrated when that package comes and you can't even get to what's inside because they taped it so
Mhm.
tightly
Uh-huh.
that you ripped your nails, you
Right.
try to pull your teeth. Okay, so when we think about that, even in our own lives, as we discuss vaccine, no vaccine, when vaccine, which vaccine, because those are all, you have
Yep.
four different things there when we're talking about getting a vaccine. Which one?
Right.
What
Right.
what side
Right.
effects? You've got all these different components. Well, that's part of the problem is that we went straight to vaccine, period. And there are so many layers. You have to get in the box. And the work that it takes to even get in there to start that
Mhm.
conversation, to think about what's inside it. And then if you've got all the bubble wrap or the peanuts or the whatever, you got to get through that. Then you get to the actual package itself.
Right.
Then you figure out whether it's actually what you wanted because Amazon has this great return policy, right? You put
Right.
it in place and you realize, no, that's not the one I
That's not
want.
exactly what I want.
I have
Mhm.
sent back a set of living room curtains 3 times in 2 weeks because it didn't look the way it looked in
And
person
mhm.
when I saw it on the screen. And that's an analogy to when we're talking about the vaccines and thinking about which ones and what are the effects. And okay, so I saw the commercial. It looked one way on the commercial.
Mhm. But is
Saw
it what I'm going to end
in
up with?
real life, and that's
Mhm.
not the way it looked in real life. Okay, I watched the webinar. This is what it sounded like
Right.
on the webinar, but then I actually spoke with somebody who got it. That's not what they said their experience was.
Mhm.
Something so it's that process of what does it mean to get to what it looks like in real life, and then be able to look at it and make a good decision. This is
It's interesting you brought up the marketing piece of it. That's my background. And I think,
Mhm.
in America, that's the thing we do the best. I have a
Right.
friend that likes to say that's our industry.
Mhm.
Um, and you're right. We have the commercials with the black celebrity who's saying we got to take this shot.
Right.
Do you think that is the effective message? Do you think that marketing has been the right message, the right messaging when it comes to talking to, in particular, our community when
Right.
we're taking this shot?
Well, the marketing that I've seen most is wrapped around getting back to normal, getting
Okay.
back to visiting people, getting back.
Right.
So it's been tailored to, you want to go see grandma who you haven't seen. You want to go get to that family reunion this way. You want to have that vacation this year. So
Mhm.
for a lot of people, that's what resonates. That's what hits
Okay.
home. The thing I haven't been able to do is this. Now I've said several times, I've done a lot of webinars. I did like a whole 20-week series on COVID and mental health last year
Really?
through AETC. And some of what we talked about was that the term social distancing, I personally think should have never been named social distancing, because what we needed to do was get physically distanced, but stay connected socially.
To one another. Yes.
Right?
I
Stay
got
connected
I see what you're
with
saying.
each other. And as a people, if we're talking about melanated people, we're talking about that being core to our culture, this
Mhm.
connection to each other. But we
Mhm.
also know how to do that from a distance. We know how to do it well. I think the thing that frightened us the most and making a decision about the vaccine or not has a lot to do with being afraid. The thing that frightened us the most with people who I talked with my own experience, was this idea of being hospitalized and facing death without your
Right.
family being able to be around you.
Right. Okay.
That is the thing that hit people more than anything else.
Right.
Not the COVID itself, the idea of being alone and not being able to have your family by your side. That's what hit us. So the marketing for the vaccine connecting us to being able to be there
Right. With our family. that we may not have seen in a year.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That is what now, and that means that we have to go back to thinking about how important is that? Why is that important for me? What will it mean for me to be able to do it? And is the vaccine going to be the route that's going to allow me to be able to do that? That gets
Mm-hmm.
into a whole other discussion about even with the vaccine, here's
Right.
what we'll have to do. So there's this whole blanket, get the vaccine and just go hang out and have the biggest family reunion.
Right. I mean, and and I was actually going to harp on that as well. You talked about social distancing. One of the things I thought they did wrong in the very beginning was this idea of telling people to wear a mask for the purposes of helping others.
Mm,
Sorry, this is America. We just don't think like that.
yeah,
We should have flat out said, wear the mask or you could die.
right,
And that would have caused you, it would have been much more effective. I mean, I hate to be so crass about it, but that would have been much more effective. I think sort of the messaging out of this has been real from a marketing point of view. We could have done a little differently and,
right,
and really had greater impact. And even today, like you said, just because you have a vaccine does not mean in certain circumstances you shouldn't wear a mask.
right.
You still should. You cannot have this big crazy family reunion with hundreds of people from all over the country without understanding if they've been vaccinated too.
Right.
So we're missing some of those points.
And that the vaccine does not prevent COVID. We need to understand just that little piece. What we know for sure the research is showing is that it's less likely to hospitalize you or kill you, but it
Okay.
does not mean you will not. The research isn't saying you'll never get COVID because you got the vaccine. So we need to even understand that, or you
Right.
won't be able to pass it on to somebody else. So when we're thinking, well, I'm vaccinated, so I'm good. Maybe not. We have to know there's still we're better, right? So I don't
Mhm.
want to put it in this context of don't get it because what's the use anyway. But that's part of the issue is we have to know when I'm talking about unpacking that box that you mentioned,
Mhm.
we have to get in. Some of us will pull out the most technical package and pull out that instruction sheet out the box and it's written in another language, right? And so I'm looking
Right.
at it and it's 10 pages. If I'm putting anything together, I have a niece who I call and say, I have a desk I need to put together because she's going to read every line of the package. I just want to put it together. And I don't care if my desk wobbles, I will stick something under the leg. We have to know what's the science of it. At least have one person in the circle who's willing to read the instructions and
Information.
say, here's the detail, because what we're doing too often is accepting what somebody else tells us.
Which
Somebody said it does this. I have a friend who told me this. Well, my friend, and we need somebody who's willing to read and understand the science. And we've all got somebody in our circle who can
that's
read and understand the science and tell us, let me tell you A, B, C, D. And so
true.
you get to make an informed decision. Culturally, in this country, we are more willing to make emotional decisions. And
Absolutely.
that's why marketing works. So they can hit us where in the emotional
Absolutely.
place, you need somebody who can give you the science behind it, explain the science in a way that makes sense to you, and then draw pictures if you need to draw pictures and say, I don't understand. Show me what this looks like. Give me a Pepsi can and a Coke can and tell me what that means. Moderna, Pfizer. Which one do I like? Help me
Right.
understand this and then allow me to be able to make a decision, not based on what somebody else has spent a lot of money marketing to me.
Right. So, what do you say to some of the agencies that have gone into communities of color, particularly challenged communities? What do you say to them about what's the best, most effective way to really galvanize an audience of folks who already are somewhat distrustful,
Mm-hmm.
have some challenges to say it's going to be okay for you to do this and not lose a day of work and not um, get sick afterwards.
Right.
This will not be the Tuskegee experiment and many other experiences
Right,
that we
right,
have.
right.
Right? What should they be saying and what should they be doing differently?
Well, two things you just said, and then I'll add a couple more on top of it. First is to be able to understand and accept that this is frightening.
Mhm.
And that's where
Mhm.
the mental piece, the health piece of it comes in, is really this is anxiety producing.
Mhm.
You know, you spent a year being frightened about what COVID can do. And then now somebody comes with magic for some people, a
Mhm.
miraculous vaccine
Sure.
that says, hey, this is right. It feels like this
Gonna
is going to be
save us.
okay. And it's scary. It's like you're coming out of the dark and saying, can I really trust it? So, and there's anxiety in making that decision because of all the things you just mentioned, the history of what has happened, individuals' histories of what happened, people
Mhm.
they've seen who did not endure the vaccine. When you had the Johnson vaccine come out, and then people were clotting and dying, and it was like, wait a minute, so you're
You
telling
said
me
this
it's
was
okay.
gonna
So
save
we
me.
cannot dismiss that individuals are anxious and
Mhm.
afraid. And even where we've got depression that has taken over for so many people during the last year, even this idea that I want to do it, but I don't even have it in me to make that decision. I want
Right.
somebody else to make that decision for me. So we think about how all of those things come into play. And then, yes, being able to have a conversation that says, I hear you. I
Mhm.
hear you. Tell me what you're afraid of. So, what we see often in communities, marginalized communities, more vulnerable populations, is somebody comes in and gives the answer without actually hearing what the question is.
Right,
Would you
right,
like us
exactly, I agree.
having this conversation and me have I came in with my script and I've got these 10 points that I must
Mhm.
make, and you've got questions you want to ask, and I haven't heard a single question because
Right.
I've got the answers already set. And
Mhm.
and I've got my agenda. And we know that in this case, with the vaccine and what's being promoted, it is designed to be for the good of all. But
Right.
I need somebody to hear what's good for me. I need
Yes.
somebody to hear what my concerns are. I need to hear, like you said, if I get sick tomorrow, what happens when I lose that day of pay, or if
That
my
day of
arm is
income.
sore and I can't lift
Mhm.
up my baby, who's going to lift up my
Uh-huh.
baby for me? So
Mhm.
those are some simple, legitimate questions. What do I do? Are there things I can take? There's a lot of things floating around now about things that you can take before you go in for the
Mhm.
vaccine that will help to reduce some of the effects coming out. Did we get that information beforehand? No. So there were people who went and got it and then found out, oh, this is what you could have done. So
Right.
maybe it's just giving information on here's some strategies you can put in place.
Mhm.
Maybe get it earlier in the morning so your 24 hours is done the next morning instead of the
Right.
next evening, and you won't miss as much work. Maybe it means so you've got different things that are being looked at now.
Mhm.
Vitamin D supplements, like the week
Right.
before you're going to take it. I don't want to give any medical advice,
Right.
but there's a lot of information. Talk to the medical providers and ask, what are some of the things I can do that could
Mhm.
offset some of the symptoms I might have afterwards? And
Okay.
then again, from the mental stress part is, now that I'm having these symptoms, am I dying? Am I going to end up in the hospital like other
Right.
people that I've seen? So the legitimate concerns are too often being dismissed as just take it and be done. Let me
Right.
walk through what I'm afraid of. Let
And
me,
especially if you don't have a doctor to do that with.
yes.
I fortunately have a good relationship with my doctor, so I could have those conversations. But a
Mhm.
lot of times in these marginal communities, you may not have
Right.
that kind of support.
Right.
So, so yeah, there should definitely be that part. Now, I've actually met you before today, actually, and
Mhm.
we've had some conversations around the whole chronic illness.
Right.
We were I mean, I myself was blown away by the concept that, a lot of people with chronic illnesses were highly affected by this pandemic. Definitely talked about, open up a dialogue around, taking better care of ourselves
Yes.
physically, less medication. How do we do that? How do we really, healthcare, especially when we may
Mhm.
have some insurance issues. But we also were a population that had to go to work.
Right.
So we had to put ourselves on the front lines every day.
Right.
So, from that perspective, what did we learn? What has your industry learned from the pandemic? That's sort of a microcosm of all the things I guess we've ignored with other chronic
Mhm.
illnesses, and how are we going to make the changes? What are there plans to impact and make some kind of change that will serve and help folks manage their lives a little bit better?
That's a beautiful question, Stephanie. And I want to give it a really happy answer, but but I'm gonna give you a but.
No.
I really want to say we're going in the right direction and we're all going to be better. And you know that that's not true, because if we look around to what our families did during this time, most of us put on weight. Most of us drank a little bit more. Most of us, we went to the opposite, right? You know, you have the fresh theme.
You caused me right out.
Yeah. So, and so I'll tell you a little bit for me personally. Since January of this year, I've lost 40 pounds.
Oh, good. Congratulations.
That happened because I have asthma,
okay,
and diabetes and high blood pressure and high cholesterol. I'm the classic, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And my asthma was so dysregulated. I was at urgent care in November. I was back there in January. I was at 50% respiration.
Oh, wow.
And I sat in that room and I thought, and I don't even have COVID.
You can't get to a ventilator, maybe.
Right? It hit me in that moment. How thankful I was that God had covered me for a year, that I had people around me who'd gotten it. I didn't get it. And I was that sick without it.
And you still can't breathe.
And I couldn't breathe, right? I'm looking at it like, if this is without COVID, I'm going to die really badly and alone. And that's not my plan. Now, that is not to say everybody who did, you know, was neglectful, but it made me stop in that moment and realize this is not the way I want to go out.
Yeah.
So they want to up my medication. They want to do this. They want to do that. What can Sonia do?
Got it.
One thing I knew I could do was get some of that weight off. The weight was impairing my breathing, was interfering with my exercise, was all the things that would help me to be able to fight if in fact I contracted COVID. I needed to get, that was my wake-up call.
Okay.
Now, my son had COVID earlier last year. My granddaughter had, my mother had gotten it and survived. And I was so thankful. She was with my sister. She lives with me, but was with my sister during that period. So it was really profound that in this moment, I had this wake-up call to say, I would have probably been the one out of my family who wouldn't have survived.
And you're the one in the medical field.
And I'm the one
who's supposed to know better.
Right? So it made me pause and think, do I want to breathe or do I want that cookie? Do I want to breathe or do I want that cookie? Like I had to, every moment was a decision. Do I want to breathe or do I want that cookie? And we have to get to a place where it's bad enough that we're able to say, that's not what I want anymore. That's not what I want. There's something I'm doing that isn't good for me. And there's a reason why I'm doing it. I could give you 20 reasons why I picked the cookie, but now I've got a reason. I want to breathe. This is what I want to do. And so I've made some decisions about lifestyle change. I got another 30 to go. I'm trying to dig in there and get it done. But each one of us has that kind of decision to make. What is it that I'm living for? How is it that I'm living for? Because so often the practice of our world, the goal, the do is for, we say it's for others. Here's where it gets tricky. I say I'm doing this for my family, but I'm really doing it so I don't feel guilty for not doing it for my family, right? Right. I'm doing it for my family, but I'm really doing it so I look good. So because I'm the hero of my family, the matriarch of my family, I have a role to keep, I have a position. No. I'm doing it because I want to breathe. Right.
And that's a selfish act. And it's okay for it to be a selfish act.
Has to be.
Right.
Has to be. There has to be. If you get on a flight and they tell you in case of change in cabin pressure, the mask is going to come down, put it on yourself first. Now, maybe, and when we talk about culture and ethnicity, because maybe fewer of us fly, we don't get that message.
We didn't get that message, yeah.
Right? We're out there handling
save yourself first, even with the child.
Even with the child. Because if not, you run the risk of passing out and leaving that child to take care of you, which is what we see in our culture too often. I need to be well enough to take care of me. And then if there's anybody else I need to take care of, but that message isn't what's handed down to us. We get the message over and over and over and over again that we have this responsibility to carry the world. I remember decades ago, I said to someone, I don't have the luxury of having a fallout. There's no space for me to have a breakdown in my world.
Because I agree.
I'm Octomom, right? Doing everything. And that's what most of us are doing. So what does it look like for us to learn? Because this is where I think it's going to be pivotal as it relates to taking care of all that chronic illness, is what does it look like for us to believe that I have a right and a responsibility to take care of myself?
Right. And even in the decision of if you want to take the vaccine or not, it is your right to get informed and make a decision that you think is best for you.
And if you choose not to, we know all the reasons to. So I'm going to do two sides of this. Let's do the two. If you decide to get the vaccine, again, that doesn't mean you will never get COVID. We don't know yet if it's going to be you have to get an annual shot like we do the flu shot. There are other strains coming out. But whether or not it protects you from COVID, you still got these other chronic illnesses that need to be taken care of. So what happens, unfortunately, the way we process information, I can get the vaccine and now I'm good. No, we still need to lose the weight. We still need to manage the diabetes. We still need to manage the blood pressure. All these other things, we can't neglect those things and think this is going to do it. I'm on blood pressure medication. What else do I need to do? What would it look like? All of us that are on these multiple medications, or should be, what would it look like? What changes in life would I have to make to be able to be weaned off my medication, if that's possible? That's mental health medication. That's physical health medication. What lifestyle changes are required of me to live my best life? And if I choose not to get the vaccine, what lifestyle changes are required of me to allow me to live my best life? It still comes down to whether you decide to do it or not do it. What lifestyle changes do I need to engage in that are going to help me to live my best life and be well?
That is a powerful way to resolve the show. I feel like that is a challenge. And I will take on that challenge because I just met with my doctor yesterday who told me the same thing.
Confirmation.
Thank you so much for coming on board. As I mentioned, I will be honest, I did kind of slightly stalk her because I'm really very I just really think it's just such an important message that we are not taking better care of our mental health as well as we're not taking care of our physical health sometimes either. So if in this decision making process we're having to make a lot of decisions fast, and in many cases decisions being made for us, that that's got to be a stressful time. And then you want me to just sit down and put some stuff in my arm that I don't know anything about. How do we make those informed decisions? By the way, I did get the shot, but I did the research prior to.
Yeah.
And did you also as well?
I did. But my yes was from a spiritual place. We have a whole other show to talk about because I was very determined that I wasn't going to take it initially until I got more information and there was more research. And I had to come to a place of peace of, go ahead and do this. And it was okay for me. But that's why I understand where folks are struggling with, do I want to or not want to? And it means sitting down, thinking about it, pray about it, do whatever it is that is your source of how I'm going to do this. So it isn't a forced decision. It's an informed, intelligent, confident, powerful decision that you choose to make.
That you can walk away from and feel like this was the right thing for me and then for my family.
Yes.
So thank you so much. I will let you go now. Please stay connected. Have a great time on your trip. And thank you so much for giving us this information. I think this has been powerful.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You have a great day.
You too.